Just want to take a few minutes and talk about fence fighting. I've been getting a lot of inquiries from people saying, how do we stop our dogs from fence fighting the neighbor's dog? Presumably, I'm guessing through a chain link fence or a wrought iron fence or that sort of thing. And some people wrote in and said, we have to walk our dogs out in our yard with leashes now because the neighbor's dog comes to the fence and then our dogs go over there and it turns into a fence fight. So what do we do about that? Well, I'll tell you what I do about it. Pressure and release. So what do I mean by that? I'm going to put some kind of pressure on those dogs that are going to the fence. A really good way that what I've found that works good for me, I'm not recommending, I'm just telling you what works for me, is using a water hose. Most dogs don't like to be squirted with a hose. Some dogs do. Storm here, he's all wet because I've been squirting him with the hose and he really likes it. But most dogs, they might wade in a wading pool or swim in a lake, but they don't like to feel that water jet on them. So what I would do if it was my dogs fence fighting, which my dogs wouldn't dare fence fight, is I'm going to have a water hose already strung out to the fence and I'm going to have it turned on, but with a little nozzle thing on the end that'll shut off. I'm not going to use a high pressure nozzle because I don't want to accidentally hit the dog in the eye with it and injure its eyes. I'm just going to use a regular pressure water hose and I'll just put my thumb over it. And what I like to do is apply the least amount of pressure necessary. So pressure and release, meaning if I bring the water hose over and I touch the dog just barely in the rear with it and it runs off, that's good enough. We're not going to follow the dog across the yard squirting it and punishing it. We are not going to do that. So what we're trying to teach the dog is if I go to the fence, I get squirted with the hose. If you have a dog like Storm here that you can squirt him pretty good with a hose, it may not work, or you might have to add a little bit of a sound correction. I use, let me cover their ears, I use, hey, like that. Oh, sorry, Matt. See, that brought Matt over to me because he thought that him over there looking down the steps was wrong. So you might want to use a verbal correction with the water, or you might have to go to something else. But we're going to start by, and you know what, if the neighbor's dog is at fault too, well, he might get squirted too. We're not going to squirt little puppies in their imprint period, that's under 16 weeks. We're not going to squirt little itty bitty dogs, little chihuahuas and things like that. We're not going to squirt elderly, frail dogs. And we're not going to squirt really timid dogs that their little psyches are easily damaged. But my dogs know not to fence fight because they know if they do, they're going to get corrected either with water, or the other thing I'll do is I'll take a metal bowl, dog bowl like this, and just throw it against the fence. Not to hit the dogs, but just to make a startle noise. And dogs, they hear 4 times better than we do. So the sound of that metal hitting the fence is just really agitating to a dog. I'll just throw it against the fence and that's going to startle everybody to run away. So the pressure is the water or the sound, and the release of pressure is the dog moving away from it. So the idea is to use the least amount of pressure that we need. If just a little squirt on the dog's rear causes it to run the other way, good enough. If you have to apply a little bit more, then you might have to do that. If the dog loves water and would stand there and let you squirt it all day, then you might have to use a startle sound. But what we're not going to do is continue, it's not punishment. People need to wrap their head around pressure and release. It is not punishment. When it becomes punishment is when the dog runs away from the fence and you keep squirting it. Now you're abusing the dog because the dog is retreating from the fence. You are not to squirt the dog as soon as I'm not giving you advice. I would not squirt my dog as soon as it started to retreat from the fence. Then he's going to run out of the pressure area. The pressure area meaning the dog running up to the fence, barking at the opposite dog. Fence fighting needs to be corrected. It's very dangerous. Dogs can actually bite each other through the fence. I've seen dogs that have hung their teeth up on chain link, pulled a tooth out. They can hurt their paws, clawing at the fence and barking. They can hurt your property, the fence. And it's just really annoying, and it's very disrespectful because my dogs know not to act foolish in front of me. They will not do it. So if your dog is over there fence fighting, then it has totally blown you off and it really doesn't care about your opinion of what it's doing. So the dog is actually in charge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my water hose, I'm going to squirt my dog, I'm going to squirt the dog on the other side of the fence, and when they break apart from each other, I'm not going to go, oh, good girl, Nikita, for not, oh, good girl. No. The release of pressure is all the reward they need, and we are not going to pet the dog for stopping acting foolish. What we're going to do, apply the pressure, the dog moves away from the pressure stops. That's really how animals learn. As you know, if you watched my Nikita video of her at the lake, she's been trained completely with pressure and release with no treats. And all that treat training garbage is for people, and the way people think, it's definitely not for dogs. Dogs only learn through pressure and release from each other. That's how they train each other. So I hope you find this helpful. I'm not giving advice on what to do. I'm just sharing with you what I do. And I'll just tell you a quick story. Years ago, I lived back when I used to have to live in a neighborhood. It was dusty Southern California, and the neighbors had this chow mix that the cars parked there, and you go out to get in the car, and this thing run up and down the fence and bark at me. And I'd come out all dressed up for work, and the thing would cover me completely in dust. This is a neighbor's dog. I told them about it. They didn't care. So I just laid my hose out just like I'm telling you, and he did that one day, and I just picked up the hose and squirted him and squirted him and squirted him, and that was the last time he ever did it. Pressure, release. And training. I mean, he had never been trained not to do that. So anyway, I hope you find this interesting. Not giving advice, just sharing the way I handle things. I'm very cut and dried in my dog training. There's not a lot of touchy-feely going on here. If you've watched any of my videos, you've figured that out by now. And you can see that my dogs really hate me because I'm so abusive. Actually, dogs want a cut and dried leader. That's the way they treat each other, and that's the way they're most comfortable being treated. But remember, as soon as the dog moves away from the fence, if you keep squirting, now you're abusing your dog. Don't punish. Don't punish. What we're going to do is correct the behavior and then stop the pressure. Me. I'm not telling you what to do. Thanks for watching.